Hello and welcome to our webinar today. My name is Nicole Prohaska. I am a test consultant at Schulfried, and for the next approximately 15 minutes, I would like to tell you more about how you can use our new test, the Professional Interest and Orientation Test, or PRIO for short, either in the context of career counseling or rehabilitation. But first, the major question is, of course, why are we talking about interest tests? In modern career counseling and occupational reintegration, interest tests are an already well-established tool that is widely used. If we, for example, type in career counseling interest test in a search engine, then we get a lot of results. So these tools are already widely in use, and it's no surprise that they are, because they are a very easy and quick way to gather systematically important information about our clients' interests. But that begs the question, why are interests actually so important for career counseling? And to answer that, let's look at a definition of interests. Interests are relatively stable tendencies to actions that are anchored cognitively, emotionally, and in terms of value in the personality. So in this definition, I have already highlighted two very important words. That's emotionally and value. So we can see that interests are something very personal, something very intimate that is deeply rooted within us. So it's no surprise then that our interests play a key role in our private life as well as in our professional life. Interests in the professional context are a major contributor to what we call the person-environment fit, of course, along with abilities and personality. This person-environment fit describes how well a person and a job fit together in terms of what they can offer and what they demand. For example, if I'm very interested in practical manual tasks, such as repairing a car, a job which offers those tasks and demands related skills is a way better fit than a position as, for example, an accountant. So overall, it's no surprise that an overall good person-environment fit leads to a higher job satisfaction, a better work performance, a higher educational success, and also fewer job changes. So measuring interests accurately is a key factor for identifying which jobs would be a good fit for your client. And this is why a good scientific basis is very important. Here you can see the RIASEC model, which is the most commonly and well-established model of interests. But we can also see that it's not very colorful. Science is not always the most fanciest thing, and design is also important when we are talking about measuring interests. If we take a short look at the most popular apps in 2020, we can find a lot of messenger apps in there, of course, but the other half of the list, more or less the top half, is comprised of visual apps like TikTok and Instagram that kind of runs on pictures alone. And a lot of people are using them, so it's very likely that due to the app users usually being on the younger side, that these download numbers contain a significant portion of our target group in career counseling and also occupational rehabilitation. So those two aspects, science and design, kind of have to go together. And this was exactly the basis for our development of PRIO, the Professional Interest and Orientation Test. PRIO looks like this. It contains attractive pictures, it has a very short test duration, and it's very simple and intuitive to use. It was designed with a mobile-first concept in mind so that it can be easily administered and very comfortable worked on a smartphone, but also works on the desktop version. So what's that scientific basis exactly? Because we now saw that design was considered here, but what about the science? PRIO relies on Holland's interest theory and the associated RIASEC model, which can nowadays be called the standard model of interest research. This model postulates that all tasks can be clustered into 6 different interest factors. Those interest factors are realistic, which contains practical, technical, more manual tasks. The investigative factor, which is more like intellectual and investigative, like reading and researching. Artistic, which is artistic and linguistic, also, for example, writing a book or sculpting. The social factor, which contains a lot of tasks that are related to teaching someone something or taking care of someone. Enterprising, and the conventional interests, which has more to do with organization and administrative tasks. As you can imagine, certain tasks have been around for quite some time, for example, reading a book, and they won't probably go away in the future. Other tasks are newer and haven't been around when the model was established in the 1980s. For example, video editing. Additionally, the number of tasks, the nature of tasks can change over time and might change to which facet the task actually belongs. So if we take our example of video editing in the early 2000s was very technical, more related to the realistic factor or the investigative factor. But thanks to technological advances, it's now far more easier to use video editing programs. You don't have to have a major in computer science to edit a video. So nowadays it counts more towards the artistic factor because of the output that you have. Such considerations were made for all the tasks that are contained in PRIO. And we reflected and rethought what each task actually requires nowadays so that we can have a modern task that captures the reality, the modern daily life of our target group. So it's very easy to understand what PRIO does. It's very simple to use. And this allows us to administer PRIO with the maximum flexibility. You can administer it either traditionally on-site with your client and you in the same location, or you can administer it from home or the home office by sending out a test link. Of course, you can also supervise your client in a video call in case questions come up during testing, or if the testing is somehow embedded in a longer counseling session that you don't want to interrupt. Either way, just a few seconds after the testing, you receive the results and you can work with them as you require. This is how the results look like. They are quite detailed with many different sections that give you a very detailed picture about your client's interests. On the top, you start with a result table that contains the raw scores and the norm values, and those tell you which interests are most expressed in your client and which ones are less important to them. Below that, you have a profile for a quick visual summary and also a graphical overview of the norm values in the classic and widely used hexagon format, which is just another type of display compared to the profile. And on the bottom, you have a very important variable, that's the differentiation. That differentiation of interests is a very good measure of how strongly developed and differentiated your client's interests already are. Usually it's the more differentiated they are, the better you can judge which jobs fit to your client. Of course, as mentioned before, interests are just one key factor for the person-environment fit. So finding a job that fits your client's interests is important, but so is finding a job that matches their skills and personality. This is why PRIO can be easily combined with all other Schufert tests into a very comprehensive test battery, for example, with our inventory for testing cognitive capabilities, or for example, the Big 5 structure inventory for testing personality. And all of this together allows you to really make good decisions, good judgment on where you can place your client, what you recommend them in terms of education or jobs. And with that, we are already at the end of our webinar. Thank you for your participation.